The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute.
Houston worries me. Your team worries me because the receiver depth is so good and they've got, talented players. And so, some days, some games, your particular Packer or Texan just isn't going to get the ball. Defenses have decided to take him away. The game plan doesn't go his way, whatever. And so that does concern me. Your team concerns me a lot, frankly. It feels like Romeo Dobbs is the safest of them week in and week out, but I struggle to know, which guy out of that Green Bay group is the one that I want to hook my wagon to. And as a result, I don't have any of them ranked higher than wide receiver 44. To your point, it's just
right.
And I've got him and Jaden Reed sitting right next to each other at 44 and 45. I got Christian Watson sitting at 51, I believe, and right in that same area. I've got Dontavian Wicks, who might end up being the best of the bunch, and just your upside. He might turn out to be the best, but it's God bless your general office, your general managers and front office that have put together such a deep, potentially very talented group.
That's the voice of Paul Charchian, who does a fantasy football hit with Bill once a week. He's on K-Fan up in the cities. Guillotine leagues. He does fantasy football stuff all over the country. You might know his voice. Just talking about how the Green Bay Packers, they might be a little bit of a fantasy football lost cause this year. Like, how do you take any of these guys high? Who's getting a really high target share on this team? You know what I mean? Everyone should get the ball. Everyone should get a reasonable amount of targets. Now, maybe Josh Jacobs, especially right now with A.J. Dillon, who's banged up, and Marshawn Lloyd, we're not really sure what's going on there. Like, Josh Jacobs, okay, fine. I might, of all of these teams, I think Tucker Kraft, you're going to be able to get him pretty low in drafts. If you're looking at like DraftKings stuff right now, like everyone's talking about, all I see on Twitter is like the DraftKings value that you can get in drafts for Tucker Kraft. You can get him at the bottom. I think he might be, and maybe this is an overreaction to what we've seen in training camp the last couple of days. He might be more trustworthy to get volume, at least compared to Musgrave. I don't know that he's going to catch a lot of bombs. I don't know that he's going to catch a lot of touchdowns, but I'd bet that he's going to catch a lot of balls. I think he's going to be a safety valve of sorts for Jordan Love. And I think he's going to be an absolute monster in the open field. And he's going to get opportunities in the open field because opposing defenses are going to have to pay so much attention deeper down the field to Watson, to Musgrave, who are both really tall and really fast. They're going to have to be locked up on really good route running. We saw from Romeo Dobbs, really good route running last year. I think Dontavian Wicks is just getting started, as Paul Charchian just mentioned. Oh, yeah, and by the way, the guy who caught more balls than anybody last year, he was the most productive of all of them, Jaden Reed. Like, he's just hanging around, too. And Malik Heath has actually looked a lot better. I know I try to not take the cheese on training camp storylines and performances because a lot of times the 5th, 6th wide receiver on the roster, we talk ourselves into them in August, and then they never really become a factor in the regular season. I don't know. Malik Heath, I think, fits this team really well as a blocker. Dontavian Wicks was near the bottom of the roster last year, and Grant Dupose might just be a worthwhile player, too. I don't know. They got a lot of players on this team to watch for and to talk about and to account for. Opposing defenses need to account for. 608-321-1670. A couple of minutes to get your Packers thoughts in here. We're going to get to Zach Heilprin, our sports director, our fearless leader at WOZN, the flagship of our network here in Madison. Because college football starts this weekend. I think it starts for real next weekend. There are those games in Ireland this weekend. And Montana's playing. I like a little FCS action. That's always fun. In recent years, like these Ireland games have been games that only Ben Kenny could love. Like we're getting Northwestern and Nebraska. But watch those games become classics. They might be ugly, but if you love college football in all forms, you love the defensive slugfests, you love it, it's probably going to give you something this weekend. The NFL is the same way. Like the opening night of the NFL, I remember going last year into Chiefs and Lions. I'm like, this game's going to be awesome. It's going to come down to the wire because the NFL will somehow find a way. They will use their devil magic to make it so because it's the NFL. And I feel kind of that way just generally about football. Like I think these weekend games, if you're a college football fan, they'll probably be great because they're standalone games. It just seems to be how the sport of football works, at least in America. Coyote Mike texts in, says, Grant, how can John Harbaugh be seemingly such a better person compared to his dolt brother, Jim? Why does everyone have such a problem with Jim Harbaugh? Like, yeah, he wears khakis and he's a little odd, but he's kind of a hilarious character. Don't tell me you're mad about him the Connor Stallion stuff. Don't tell me you're actually mad about that stuff. And I'm not mad about Kirk Ferentz and what he did to get Cade McNamara either. I don't care. And the NCAA, I've never been one to just bang on the NCAA over the years. It seems like such an easy thing that many sports talkers have done. Oh, they're corrupt. Jay Billis has been grandstanding on that forever. And whatever, that's a hit. He's very good at it, right? That's certainly on his greatest hits album as a sports analyst. I've never really cared. We've gotten to the point now where the NCAA can just go bug off because they don't have a clue what's going on. They have no control over anything. They have no guardrails around anything. So now you're gonna come down on Kirk Ferentz? No, the NCAA, you get your house in order before you get to worry about other people's houses. Like if I came home at 3 a.m. one night, my dad's like, Grant, where were you last night? Oh, I was out with friends. You're grounded. Well, where were you, Dad? Well, I was at the bar till 6 a.m. It's like, well, who are you to sit and lecture me? And my dad wouldn't do bars close at 2. I just needed an easy example, right? Like, I don't want the NCAA getting on their high horse about anything until they actually start to figure some stuff out. Like Kirk Ferentz. Do you see Kirk Ferentz's statement, by the way? It's actually kind of wholesome. He's like, yeah, I broke the rules. Promise I'll never do it again. I made a mistake. It's like, wow, I'm supposed to hate Iowa as a rival, but this is actually kind of endearing. Kind of seems like my grandpa, Kirk Ferentz. I saw it's the first game since like the late 70s that's not coached by one of 2 Iowa coaches. He'll be suspended. He'll coach during the week. It's all cosmetic. It's all grandstanding by the NCAA. It's so dumb. I don't have a problem with John Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh. I think they're both interesting characters. These are the comments, by the way, that Coyote Mike's referencing. This got me going. John Harbaugh talking about football and 2 teams coming in with focus and intention and attitude. I love this.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the practice was excellent. It's what you hope for in a practice like this. It's what we expected against a team coached by Matt LaFleur. His dad, my dad, coached against each other way back when at Central Michigan versus Western Michigan back in the day. So football family, both teams were keeping it, between the lines, between the whistles, and it was physical practice. They're a very good team. I thought our guys did well, acquitted themselves very well, both sides of the ball. I thought we played good football. It was good to get out there in a little up-tempo situation against another team situationally and try to handle the problems that are caused by that. So real grateful for that work.
That got me going. It's the third week of August. You can really start to see football coming up this weekend, and the NFL, the kickoff, that Thursday night game's now less than 2 weeks away. I hearing those comments yesterday, that two teams that are ready to go. We're ready for the season. Let's go. 608-321-1670. Send me a text, as Coyote Mike has done, as Bobby and Menominee. Bobby says, bane of my Saturdays for many years, Paul Charchian. I need more information. I want to know exactly what you're driving at there. So please follow up, Bobby. If you have Packers thoughts, text them to me or tweet them to me at Wisco Grant. We'll get to them in a couple minutes. But first, got to take a break. We'll come back with Zach Heilprin, our sports director at WOZN. You can hear him on the updates. You hear him doing Badgers hits on all of our shows. You can listen to him on the camp as well. An excellent Badger podcast that is mandatory listening. It's him and Jesse Temple, who also joins the show. We'll talk Badgers with him and the start of the college football season. We'll do that next. It's the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Again, there aren't many details that we can really share, unfortunately, until this matter is closed. But I did feel it was important to stand up in front of all of you and acknowledge when I had done something wrong. Basically, you face the repercussions, and then we'll move forward with our season, and that's our plan at this point.
It's the voice of Kirk Ferentz, Iowa football head coach, who's going to be suspended for a game. As he explained in the statement, I didn't play the whole thing. He's going to be with the team throughout the week and help his team get ready, but he will not be on the sideline. Now, I saw this stat yesterday. I should have bookmarked it, and I didn't. But Zach Heilprin, who's going to join us now, our sports director at WOZN, you hear him on the camp and on the swing and on the updates and all over. This is the first time since like the late 70s that Iowa hasn't had one of two coaches on the sideline. It's Ferentz and somebody else, right?
Yeah, Hayden Fry was the coach before Kirk Ferentz took over. I believe his first year was 1999, I believe, because that was the year that Ron Dane broke the all-time rushing record. I don't know if you know that or not, Grant.
I'm glad that you brought that. I think every person needs their thing. I love that you have a thing because you're a serious sports reporter. You go to games, you're credentialed, you talk with athletes and coaches, and you're much more of a journalist. I'm an analyst, right? I'm kind of a hot take guy on the radio sometimes, but I love that even you have your thing, and that's that Ron Dane doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Do you have any comment? That's my most interesting college football story of the week is the
Kirk Ferentz. How does everyone do this and not get like suspended? I know this is an Iowa suspension. I know the NCAA brought it to their attention. This is an Iowa thing. No other school in the country is doing this. No other school, because every other school is doing exactly what Kirk Ferentz got in trouble for and what John Budmeyer, the former Wisconsin quarterback and former coach, got in trouble for, which was talking to Cade McNamara before he went into the portal. Everyone talks to them, these players, before they go in the portal. That's why we know as soon as they go in the portal and they have this little thing next to their name that says, "Don't contact me." That's because they already know where they're going. But I also have another thing, and this is only a thing for people that are actually watching the stream. Do you see this guy?
What is this?
Can you see little Grant Bills right there?
It's not that little. I was like 6 feet tall.
Cross Country Grant is what I'm showing all the folks on the stream. I don't know if you can see it or not.
I was a freshman. I was a freshman in that picture.
That is amazing. And I was trying to decide.
You can feel
I was trying to decide between that and all the tweets of never miss a Friday show, only to miss a whole bunch of Friday shows. But not today. Not today. This was a big day. Coming here on a Friday, fantastic. Because you never miss a Friday show.
I'm not going to miss. There's not going to be a Friday show in 2 weeks. I have a wedding. It's 4 hours away. And you know what's wild?
So no Friday show.
There's a Packer game going on that night during the wedding. You plan a wedding in the fall on a Friday night, you think you're in the clear. They're Minnesota people. They're from the Twin Cities. So I don't think that was front of mind anyways, but you think you're in the clear on a Friday night. I already mentioned you once in the show because I'm like, Zach's not going to be happy. There's not going to be a Friday show in 2 weeks. So
I'm not happy. Yeah, I mean, again, when you have a thing and your thing is no Friday show, like you have a thing. It's never miss a Friday show. Your thing is, that'd be like me saying one day, just saying, Donnell Pumphrey, he's the all-time leading rusher. No, always.
The day that I hear you say that is the day I won't take your acumen seriously anymore because that will have showed me that you've given up.
Well, and the reason I brought that sheet to the show tonight and talking about a whole bunch of stuff that isn't Wisconsin football is because you have Jesse Temple on every time or every week now that it's very hard for me to live up to that. So I have to bring shticks now to try and entertain you and hopefully the listeners at times.
You're not allowed to tell Jesse this, although I know you will. But I have to raise my game when Jesse comes on.
Oh, I
Because
told him already.
He's coming on every week, right? So
Yeah.
like I for the most part ask, hey, can you come on? There's specific things I want to talk about. I now need to come up with things to talk about when Jesse's coming on. And I'm like, I'm buying newspapers with my morning coffee in the morning. I'm reading detailed stories about the injury to James Thompson Jr., which is probably where we should start. Probably sooner rather than later. Like I'm in it. I asked him, what did I ask him? I don't even remember. I blacked out Wednesday. I asked him about the injury, of course. We got into some Tyler Van Dyke discussion, but like I'm writing down things and questions. I'm listening to material and reading material ahead of time before I talk to Jesse.
I love that he's making you up your game.
It's good.
It's
good for
I think
everybody.
that's amazing. I think it's great.
It benefits everybody. Now, I didn't write this down, but I knew I had this in the front of mind. What does the injury to James Thompson Jr. mean?
It's a significant loss. I mean, he's their lone. I shouldn't say their lone. He's the guy with the most experience along the line. He's played a bunch of football at a spot where they don't have a ton of experience coming back, right? Like Kurt Neal has played a little bit, Ben Barton has played a little bit, but James Thompson Jr. was the clear leader of that group, and he was poised, I thought, for a really good season. He created what former defensive line coach Greg Scruggs talked about. He wanted to create chaos on the other side of the ball. I thought James Thompson Jr. showed he had the ability to do that at times, especially early last year. And so without him, and it's obviously going to be a long time without him, that they're going to need some other guys to step in. And that is where they went into the transfer portal. They got Brandon Lane, a transfer from Stephen F. Austin. They got Elijah Hills out of the FCS. Or Division II. So they have guys, but they're going to need some others to step up. Kurt Neal has to become the guy that a lot of people thought he was when he came in, and Ben Barton needs to keep on playing the way he does. And you maybe need a guy or two, maybe one of the younger guys, a Dylan Johnson or a Jamel Howard to start playing, or Will McDonald to capitalize on hhis opportunities. It's a huge loss. Huge loss.
So I think it's a casual take and a casual question to ask something like, is the next TJ is the next TJ Watt or even the next Vince Beagle or Chris Borland in the waiting? It would be like if we're having a Brewers conversation, like, is there a CC Sabathia to be had in the deadline? Like, I don't need Badger greats of the past as a point of reference. I guess more of what I'm asking is, are there some guys that we can really wrap our arms around as potential stars, guys that I can turn on every Saturday and not just be rotational pieces along the D-line and linebacker core? That's very important to Luke Fickell, and you talked about that all the way going back to Big Ten Media Days. Are there some guys by the end of the year where I'm going to be like, yeah, I can't wait to watch that guy every Saturday? He's separated himself.
I mean, they remade the linebacker room, so you should have a guy or two to grab onto. I think a John Pius, who came out of William & Mary, a guy like John Pius. Yeah, and he wears 0.
It's William & Mary, too.
Yeah, and he wears 0.
Pope.
So
call him the Pope.
Yeah. The Leon Lowry, another guy, Daryl Peterson. Like, those are the three guys that I would say on the outside are the ones that you were hoping that will to step up. Jaheim Thomas, the transfer from Arkansas/Cincinnati, along with Jake Chaney. I don't know that you have anyone that you're going to sit there and say that guy's going to be a star this year. I don't know that we can sit here and say that. I think that they have a lot of opportunities to be stars. Like, I don't know that you think about TJ Watt in 2015, he was a situational rusher and wasn't even playing outside linebacker. They had him as a situation rusher with his hand on the ground. So we knew, based on what we saw in spring, that he was going to be pretty good. And then he just came out in the LSU game and was just different. There's a possibility that one of these guys does that. We saw a lot of really good play from them, both in the spring and fall, but I just can't sit there and point to one guy on defense.
That's fine. We might come to learn of one of those guys. I mean, it's happened before. TJ Watt's an example. You could make the case of Jonathan Taylor, but again, you had background in the spring. You saw him at practice. Like, really? Okay.
No,
not even
no.
Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor came out of absolutely, I want to say, nowhere. He was still 5th string on the depth chart when practice closed to the media. It was which was like a week and a half in, like 2 weeks in. And then Taiwan Deal. I don't know. Do you know that name, Taiwan Deal?
Yeah. The classic, I'm sitting at the bar on a Friday night with my guy friends and we're just naming athletes. Yeah.
Yes,
his injury kind of paved the way, right? You and Jesse were talking about this not long ago.
His injury paved the way for 2 NFL careers. I'm not saying Jonathan Taylor wouldn't have been eventually a great running back, but you go back to 2014 when Wisconsin had Melvin Gordon and Corey Clement, and Clement was dinged up, and all these other guys were dinged up, and they moved Dario Gumbawale from cornerback over to running back, and he's still playing in the NFL. Of all the guys that came through this program, whether it's Monte Ball or James White or Melvin Gordon or Corey Clement, he's the one that's still playing. So, but yeah, without Tywan Deal's injury that year, who knows if Dario ever gets a chance on offense. Jonathan Taylor got his opportunity against the Ones in a scrimmage with the Big Ten Network in town and just went off and had 2 long touchdowns and had Chris Orr asking, do we suck? And that 2017 defense did not suck whatsoever. It was fantastic, and Jonathan Taylor obviously proved that. But I think there are a number of guys on offense you could say that you could potentially see as stars. I think Will Pauling's a guy you can count on all the time. And
wide receiver 1 last year by a wide margin. I was going to ask you about the other guys. Like Bryson Green's had a good camp. His second year now in Wisconsin. Is he one of those guys? That's where I was going to go next.
He's a guy. And, Vinny Anthony is another one. And throw CJ Williams out there too. But there's a guy that just switched numbers that I think we're going to be talking about a ton. There is no more revered number, at least in my opinion, at Wisconsin than the number 2. People wearing the number 2, go back. Whether it's Leder Amos or Jamar Fletcher or Brian Calhoun or Jonathan Casillas or Joel Stabe or, just the regular greats that we all think about Wisconsin football, there's not a number that is more known than the number 2. And Tretch Kahuna last night went from 12 down to 2, and he just dropped about a half second off his 40 time just by going from 12 to 2. So he is a guy that I am extremely, extremely high on. He's so quick. I don't know that Wisconsin's had a ton of receivers like him. We got a little glimpse of it in the bowl game last year against LSU. He had 4 catches for 61 yards, I think it was. And that was more yards than Skylar Bell had in any game last year. So I think he's going to have a breakout campaign. Like if him and Will Pauling together are I think they're special, but you obviously need the guys on the outside to do something as well to take a little pressure off of them. But I think Tretch Kahuna is potentially the breakout guy.
So Zach Heilprin is here. Listen to the camp, listen to the swing seasonally when it's back. And I'm already excited for Badgers basketball season so we can get back to Greg Gard discourse. Just looking at the Badgers schedule. This is maybe an unfair question to you. I wouldn't ask Jesse this, but I will ask you this. Are there games on the schedule where you can circle and be like, I'm pretty sure we can bank a win, right? I want to know how many games you can look at this schedule and let's say like 80% sure. Like if I had to bet money, I would.
There used to be so many of these games.
That's my point.
You know what I mean? I think we've talked about this in the past a little bit. There have been so many of these games. I will sit here and say I would bet money that they'll win their first 2. I think South Dakota's a little sneaky, right? South Dakota's a little sneaky. They're ranked 5th. In the FCS, some of those Dakota teams have given Iowa some trouble in recent years.
Well, we can't begin to understand exactly the emotion behind that rivalry. So that's always what I've heard when Iowa State or Northern Iowa takes them to the wire. We just can't. That's a battlefield that we can't operate on.
But I'm talking about like the South Dakota states and the South Dakotas. I don't know if it's South Dakota, but South Dakota State certainly has. And North Dakota State obviously is such a great program as well. But either way, those first 2, I would say yes. I would also say Purdue because I don't believe you were alive the last time Wisconsin lost to Purdue,
and it's
which was 2003. It was at home. So I would say of
I was closing in on 6 years old, by the way. That's you.
What? You're going to take issue with me saying you're young?
I'm older and wiser than you give me credit for, but sure, it is a compliment, I suppose. Okay.
You're definitely older than I give you credit for. That's for sure.
Okay. Okay. That's fine.
I'm not going to add I'm certainly not going to add the other parts. I think obviously the Rutgers game is a game that you would think you would win, but a lot of people have Rutgers ahead of Wisconsin going right now at Northwestern in that little Lego stadium that they're going to play in this one year. I have no clue. I would not bet on that game. Penn State, obviously no. At Iowa, absolutely not. Oregon, nope. Nebraska, you've beaten them every year since 2012, or since 2013, but that's a different team. I'm interested to see what they look like. And then PJ Fleck at home on Black Friday? What the hell? Yes.
Yeah.
So there's 4 games that you would sit there and say, yeah, I think I would be okay, and I'm cool with saying that Wisconsin's going to win those games. But that's probably a whole lot fewer than I would have in the past. Like in the past, you would have guaranteed Rutgers. You would have guaranteed Northwestern. You would have guaranteed, I guess it depends where that Northwestern game is, but like you would have guaranteed both of those. You would have said, oh, Iowa, that's a coin flip. In Nebraska, you beat them every year until they beat you. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's not that many games anymore. And that's what happens when the last 2 years happen.
Well,
You erode the trust in a program to beat the teams that they should beat.
And that's why when we're talking about, how many games do you think the Badgers will win, it's just really hard with any level of confidence to pick many more than 7 or 8 because there's very few bankable wins where there used to be a lot more. And part of that is because of the schedule and the way the conference has changed, of course. This is just a fun question. This is a means to talk about some of these matchups. You can go any direction with this. If you had to get your hopes up and think about an upset between these 3 games, I want to know what your favorite potential would be. Home against Alabama, that's in week 3. Home against Penn State or home against Oregon. So they get those 3 teams. Are those probably their 3 best opponents this year, right? I guess it depends.
Yeah,
what you think of USC, but
what do you think of USC and maybe Iowa overcomes the loss of Kirk Ferentz in week 1 and somehow managed to keep the program going. Him and John Budmeier, the 2 stalwarts. Maybe the offense will go out there and score 50 points with both those guys somewhere else.
There's one magic day at Camp Randall this year where a game that we're going to remember when they took down Bama, Penn State, or Oregon. Which one would you pick, do you think?
I mean, it's far and away. If it's like, oh, we're going to remember that forever, it's going to be Alabama.
Sure.
It's still Alabama. I know that Nick Saban's not there, but it's Alabama. If you're going to bring them in, and if you're probably going to be 2-0 and on the fringe of the top, going to be in the top 10, that's the program of the 2000s, right? Like they have been the standard for the last 20 some odd years, or I mean, I guess whenever Saban went back there from the Dolphins, like 2006, 2007, they've been it. And other teams have jumped up. Clemson, Georgia, I get that, but that they are them. And I would say that would be a magical day that you would never forget, especially as a fan, you'll never forget where you were the day that they beat Alabama. And if it happens like in a magical way, like a pick 6 or a late touchdown, like John Stocco against Michigan in 2005, where he's doing the quarterback draw and he goes in and they score and it's just incredible moment. Like we need more of those moments at Wisconsin. There have not been nearly enough in the last 5 years, and they have the opportunity with this schedule to have several of those opportunities and those moments this year.
Well, 60 seconds. I want your thoughts on this before I let you go because we got to go. But I asked this to Jesse. It's like, man, if you beat Alabama, you start 3-0 and you go into conference play with a win. Like, how far does that go to change the perception, the excitement level now going into the rest of that nasty Big Ten schedule?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about what happens in that game. It's about what it means for your program. It's a measuring stick for where you are. And all of a sudden, instead of not knowing where you are, you're sky high and you're going on the way up. And you get an opportunity 2 weeks later to go out to USC and pull an upset there.
Welcome them to the Big Ten. Like that's not a difficult thing to get amped up for.
And that offense is going to be good. I know that, but their defense isn't. I think Wisconsin has a shot to win that game. If they beat Alabama, I obviously feel even better about that. It's that Alabama game can send this season in perhaps 1 or 2 different ways.
Well, and USC's defense can be had. We stole Alex Grinch, so they're now reeling as well after the last year or 2.
All right, Ben Kenny.
Yeah, well, God, we miss Ben in weeks like this when there's Kirk Ferentz drama and these first 3 terrible games that are going to be in Ireland. Like this is Ben Kenny season.
Florida State, really? You're going to be hitting? You're going to knock that?
The games aren't going to be great though. The Montana, I'm a Grizzly fan. I'm a Montana, not a Montana State guy.
Yeah. I watched all those games last year. Was it Montana or Montana State that was deep in the playoffs?
I don't remember. They were
all
exactly.
They're on exactly because you are not a Montana State or a Montana guy.
Well, I prefer Montana to Montana State, but I guess
you went through Montana once in your life, and it's like,
Bozeman's a bunch of posers. Missoula, the Grizz. We are a Grizz. Man, it'd be cool to go to school out there. Moscow, Idaho. Like some of those games are cool. They're indoors. They are cool. They're cool games. They're worth watching.
You essentially went to a mountain school anyways, didn't you?
Well, basically, the mountain school of the Midwest, UW La Crosse.
The bluffs, all those great bluffs.
the scenic bluffs. Well, Zach, I appreciate it. I could talk to you for an hour, but we'll circle back, and I can't wait to maybe I'll be in the press box with you at one of these games. I know you'd love that.
You know, I do. There's nothing more than I would jump at the chance to have Grant Bills next to me in the press box.
Thank you, Zach.
Move over, Jesse Temple.
Well, I could sit in between you. It'd be perfect. Thank you,
for
Zach.
sure. Yep. Later.
Zach Heilprin. Listen to The Camp. It's an excellent podcast, and it's honestly the way that I prepare to stare down the barrel of Jesse Temple every week and try to have high-level Badgers conversation with him. Because I'll mess around with Zach. I'm not messing around with Jesse. That man is a professional, and so is Zach, but I know Zach personally and have for a while. Let's take a break, 3 minutes. We'll wrap up hour number 1 of the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The Wisco Sports Show. Got about a minute here, and then we'll break for an update from Zach Heilprin. He's staying busy tonight. Appreciate 20 minutes of his time to come on and talk Badger football with us and to just get ready for the season. And I know some of those conversations, they might be trivial, right? Like, which wins do you think we can bank? Which massive game do you think they have a chance to pull an upset? But they're just easy conversation starters to get us into deeper conversation about what the Bama game means, right? Where we stand as a program with Iowa Northwestern. That kind of stuff. We'll continue these conversations next. 2 minutes, no commercials.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Packers are getting ready for the preseason finale tomorrow against Baltimore. Coach Matt LaFleur said yesterday that it was still to be determined whether quarterback Jordan Love would play in the game. If he doesn't, yesterday's joint practice against the Ravens will be the closest he gets to live action before the opener on September 6th against the Eagles in Brazil. If it was it, Love liked what he saw from the offense.
I think it was a good practice today. I think, we started a little slow to start. The team run period, I don't think it was our best, but I think, we definitely picked it up and started moving. I think red zone was a great period for us. We were able to execute at a high level down there and then to finish 2-minute drive. Obviously wish we had to get that touchdown, but ended with a field goal, so it was good.
Again, the Packers and Ravens will close out the preseason tomorrow afternoon at Lambeau Field. Kick is set for noon. Turning to the Badgers, they're just a week out from the start of their season against Western Michigan. Wisconsin enters the year unranked for the first time since 2016. They're slated to play 5 top 25 teams, including 3 in the top 10. Again, things get going next Friday against the Broncos. Kick is set for 8.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Brewers are in Oakland. It's where they're going to open up a series against the A's tonight. They will do so coming off a series loss to the Cardinals this week. Despite that, their lead in the division stands at 10 on St. Louis, 10.5 on the Cubs. First pitch tonight out in Oakland is set for 8:40. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heilprin.
Yeah, I thought the practice was excellent. It's what you hope for in a practice like this. It's what we expected against a team coached by Matt LaFleur. His dad, my dad, coached against each other way back when at Central Michigan versus Western Michigan back in the day. So, football family, both teams were keeping it, between the lines, between the whistles, and it was physical practice. They're a very good team. I thought our guys did well, acquitted themselves very well, both sides of the ball. Thought we played good football. It was good to get out there in a little up-tempo situation against another team situationally, and try to handle the problems that are caused by that. So real grateful for that work.
Good practice today. I think, we started a little slow to start. We definitely picked it up and started moving. I think red zone was a great period for us. Executed at a high level down there and then finished 2-minute drive. Ended with a field goal, so it was good.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Such a football coach thing to say. Grateful for that opportunity, right? To beat the tar out of each other? No, John Harbaugh talking about the physicality and the tempo that you don't really necessarily get when you're just going with an intra-squad scrimmage, inner squad. When one team's offense is just scrimmaging against their defense, right? Now, when you mix and match Packers versus Ravens, Ravens versus Packers, little extra level of energy. And that presents different challenges, different opportunities, as a coach would say, to improve. It's a very football coach way to describe that. It's the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Never miss a Friday show. You have 60 minutes remaining for the week to get ready for Packers-Ravens. Preseason game actually at Lambeau. And as I said back at 4 o'clock, just to kind of give a professional reset to the show for those who are joining us, I think football is really starting to feel real for me for the first time. Packers training camp has been going on, and they had a joint practice with the Broncos, and they've been in camp for weeks now. We've had the press conferences, and we've gotten the reports from Packers beat members of, Jordan Love made this throw, and this defender made this play, and Eric Stokes looks nice. It's really only beginning to feel real for me now for the first time this week. And I suppose that could be for a lot of different reasons. Like maybe that Tucker Kraft is back on the field. Jordan Morgan's back at practice. Edrin Cooper's back at practice. They're getting healthier. Now they've also had guys like A.J. Dillon's banged up. But big picture, more guys are getting healthier than are getting injured. We're getting closer to the regular season. I think timing has a lot to do with this. Like I was going to try to sneak a fishing trip. When I was driving into work on Monday, Tuesday, I'm like, you know what? I got the itch. I kind of want to get up north one more time before football. And I was thinking, well, next weekend, how would I swing that? Weekend after that, I got a wedding. I'm not sure that that's in the car. I started trying to do the math. I'm like, it doesn't work. Carry the one. No, not enough time. No time. Football starts. The NFL starts 2 weeks from last night. The Packers begin their season 2 weeks from tonight in Brazil. Like, we're so close. College football starts this weekend. The Badgers start their season a week from tonight, which, by the way, I mean, so disrespectful to high school athletes. I think it's disgusting what the NCAA has done. It's been this way forever. Friday nights are for high school kids. And do Friday night lights mean nothing? Is nothing sacred anymore? 8-man football in Spencer, Columbus should take precedent over. I can't. I can't. Yeah, can you imagine if I was that guy? Oh, can you imagine if I was that a-hole? Oh, my God. The Badgers can play a game on Friday night. It's not the end of the world. High school football will go on. It will be okay. God. But it's starting to feel real, right? The Badgers open their season a week from tonight against Western Michigan. So we just have so much to look forward to, and it's starting to feel real, right? Here's an analogy. Here's what I could compare it to. Not everyone is Catholic, the one true faith. If you're not Catholic, I'm glad we get a chance to hang out in this life, because we're not going to be hanging out in the next one. I'm kidding. Lutherans, you'll probably get to heaven. I don't know for sure. Probably, though. Coin flip chance. Technically, probably. But you're familiar with the concept of Advent, right? The 4 weeks leading up into Christmas. That third week, you get the pink candle on the wreath. A little extra kick in the pants. It's like, yeah, we're getting close. Like, we're in pink candle season, SZN, right now. We're in the third week of football Advent. We're very close. Right. And I think these joint pack practices being in Green Bay, the bikes, the tradition, both with the Packers and the Ravens, seeing Lamar Jackson ride a bike, that was pretty cool. Like, it's just all starting to feel real. And that could be for a million different reasons. They're getting healthier, right? But also, I think it's just proximity. We're just closer to the season beginning. So all of this feels like it matters a lot more than it did 3 weeks ago or a month ago. 608-321-1670. Appreciate Coyote Mike texting in. Rick from Spencer says, Grant, make Bill buy dinner tonight. Congrats on 3 years. Yes, I'm celebrating an anniversary this year. You want Bill to buy my anniversary dinner with my significant other? That's not. Hey, I got a real nice anniversary dinner planned tonight. It's just going to be you and me and Bill. What? How would that work, Rick? Great in theory. A little bit harder in execution. Although Bill said he was going out tonight. I am going to a happy hour in Milwaukee tonight I'm not going to say where, because I don't want to invite people to this function, but you know who I get to see tonight? And I'm jacked about this. I get to see Big Ron tonight. I get to see Big Ron in Jersey. He's back in Wisconsin, and he sent me a Twitter DM probably 2 months ago. He's like, hey, my wife and I are going to be back in town, and I think he's got a son at UW. I'm not sure. He's got some connection to UW, a nephew, a son. I don't remember. And he said, we're going to be back and we're hosting a happy hour for a lot of our friends at this bar, and you should come. And up until today, I wasn't quite sure that I was going to be able to make it, because I just, if you have a significant other, a husband, a wife, you know these things. It's Friday, long work day, long work week. Right? I might be willing to kind of push my social battery a little bit to go get drinks with Big Ron in Jersey. Maybe a little bit of a tougher sell to my other half. It's like, hey, do you want to go have drinks at the happy hour with with who? Big Ron in Jersey. You might know him better as Drunk David Stearns on Twitter. It's harder sell. But I brought it up today, and I got guys, you might appreciate this answer. I got a very genuine and affirmative. I think I'm okay, but you should definitely go. So I get to see Big Ron tonight. I'm very excited. Although Bill said he was going out I think they're going to a spot in Waukesha or somewhere tonight. So maybe I'll bump into him too. I still haven't been to the Nice Ash. I'm not a cigar guy, but I feel like if I go to a cigar bar, how could you not be a cigar guy at a cigar bar? So yeah, that's my plans for tonight. Bill will probably not be part of the anniversary dinner, but we'll be getting dinner this weekend. Robin Stoddard says, sadly, nothing is sacred anymore, Grant. So the Friday night lights will be overtaken by the likes of the NFL as long as they make money hand over fist. Am I the only one who does not give an F about it. I give an F about nothing. I just, guys, the kids can still play football under the Friday night lights. That's not going anywhere. I don't know. The people who complain about that, yeah, I know. Friday night lights have been for high school. Saturday's been for college. Sundays are for the NFL. Christmas is for the NBA, right? This used to be the way the world works, but it's just, I don't know. You can still go watch little Johnny play tight end for your local high school team, even if there's a college football game going on, right? The spread of Wisconsin, Western Michigan is 25 points. And if the Badgers have improved at all as a program in the last 12 months, they should beat Western Michigan by a margin where you can pay attention on your phone while little Johnny and little Jimmy they're out there running around playing football. It's fine. I don't care. In a perfect world, high school Friday, college Saturday, NFL Sunday, and Monday and Thursday night's fine too. The NBA would be for Christmas and it would all be, but in a perfect world, sure. But we don't live in a perfect world. I'm not going to cry tears for the NFL and college football encroaching on the Friday night lights. Maybe if I had kids who played college or high school football, maybe I'd feel differently, but I don't know. It just doesn't bother me. Duck and Holman says the Lutheran comment made me laugh. Yeah, Lutherans will probably go to heaven. I don't know for sure. I'd like to think so, but I have no idea. Bart, thank you for the text. 608-321-1670. Congrats, Grant. Enjoy the night and the weekend. I will, Bart. Thank you. And next weekend, we have a 3-day weekend. So I guess that doesn't apply to what we're talking about. I like having something to look forward to. And the last 2 or 3 weeks have been a little tough for me because I was in Montana. That's like I look forward to that trip. I love going out there and fishing so much. It's just like all of my favorite things in the world for 1 week. And then when I come back, it's like, well, now what do I have to look, 3-day weekend. That's nice. That's something to look forward to. The start of football, that's something to look forward to. It's a very exciting time of year. We are in the third week of football Advent. There's a special name for that third week of Advent, the Pink Candle Week. I should know this. Maybe I'm going to hell. I'm a bad Catholic. I'm a Catholic. I'm no better than a Lutheran. 608-321-1670. To get back to where we started the show, I've forgotten about Tucker Kraft until the last couple of days. And based on everything I've seen the last couple of days in practice and the tweets that I'm reading, I think he's going to be a problem. And I think all these Packers pieces on offense, we've probably wasted a lot of time talking about, well, who's the number one wide receiver and who, is there a true number one? And Matt LaFleur, I just want to vomit anytime I hear that. It's like, okay, easy. I think in those conversations, we've lost maybe a more productive conversation, which is how well all of these pieces fit together. Christian Watson and Luke Musgrave, with their size and speed, vertical pieces, right? They're going to stretch the defense vertically. So that's your outer layer of the offense. I think in the layer behind them, you're going to have Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks, who are just crisp as Rice Krispies running routes. It's not my best work. It's Friday. Crisper than fried chicken from Quick Trip, our friends at Quick Trip, right? Like they're going to snap off those routes, find the soft spaces in the defense beneath, right? If Watson and Musgrave are stretching the field vertically, there's going to be all the space vacated underneath by defenders. That's the area that Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Doubs are just going to eat. And then Jaden Reed can eat in there too. Like I don't even know where to stick Jaden Reed in this analogy, in this picture that I'm painting in my head of how this Packers offense is going to look. And now if you have those guys stretching the field vertically and then Wicks and Doubs operating underneath, Tucker Kraft is going to throw some blocks. He's going to spring loose on a bootleg out into the flat, underneath on a little crosser. You're going to throw a block and then spring free on a route. You're telling me Tucker Kraft, who I see nothing but commentary about his physicality and his speed in the open field when he gets ahead of steam. Jordan Love's going to be able to dump the ball off to that guy, and he gets to run down the field now like a moose at full speed towards defenders who are focused with, well, I was watching Christian Watson. And the guy over here is like, well, I was watching Dontavian Wicks. Oh my God, here he comes. And there's Tucker Kraft from South Dakota. He's from Timberlake, South Dakota. You tell me if that's a guy that you want to get in front. I'd pass. I would try to avoid that if I were a defender. And Josh Jacobs, much of the same, too. Now, that's going to present differently. That's going to present in a more traditional running game. But I almost think of Tucker Kraft in the short passing game, in the yards after the catch game. I almost think of Tucker Kraft as a different variant, a different extension of the running game. You know what I mean? You're not going to hand him the ball, but in theory, you're kind of accomplishing something similar, right? When you get that ball to Tucker Kraft and let him run in the open field. And that's what I think Jordan Love did a great job of last year. And I think Jordan Love, now that he's made the money and he's got his respect and he's got something to prove too, that money was worth it and that the second half of last season wasn't a fluke. It wasn't just one hot streak. Yeah, sure. Okay, that's all great. But I really, really hope Jordan Love keeps perspective this season of, I got a lot of good weapons around me. I don't really have to do too much. Just get the ball in their hands. Let them do a lot of the work for me. I really think that's where Aaron Rodgers probably in his career, he could have done a little better job of that. I love the back shoulder throws and all of that. Wow, how did he drop that in there? That drop in the bucket throw, that was incredible. If you go back and you watch Tom Brady on these playoff runs, you know what Tom Brady was really good at? Throwing really simple routes, high percentage routes, and letting the wide receiver then go do the work. How many times on a 3rd and 12 did Tom Brady deliver a perfect ball on a perfectly set up screen where the running back or the slot wide receiver would then pick up 14 yards after the catch? And I'm sitting at home thinking, does Tom Brady ever have to do any of this himself? And Tom Brady did plenty by himself. But not when he didn't have to. He's like, well, why do I need to throw a tiny window back shoulder throw when I could simply dump the ball off to Rex Burkhead and let him run for 12 yards? That's a lot easier. That's easier on everyone, except for Rex Burkhead, but that's why Rex Burkhead is on the team. So I hope Jordan Love doesn't lose that this year. And I think Jalen Hurts has maybe lost that. If you read some of the reporting about the Eagles this offseason and his headspace and where he stands, relative to his offensive coordinator. Now he went from Steichen to Brian Johnson last year. Now Kellen Moore's in there. I think since Jalen Hurts got paid, he's feeling his oats a little bit more, and that's human nature. He wants to operate like a more traditional drop back passing quarterback. I want to make some big throws. I want to have autonomy at the line of scrimmage. I want to be able to conduct my offense the way that I see fit. And I think Nick Sirianni, who's probably a little over his skis as a head coach, I think a lot of people believe that he probably got this job a little bit early. And year one, Shane Steichen was unbelievable, and maybe Nick Sirianni a little over his skis. But I think Nick Sirianni's probably like, dude, we have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Now we have Saquon Barkley. Oh, and we also have Dallas Goedert at tight end. Just do the easy stuff, man. Just read the teleprompter. Just read the script. And every once in a while, make some magic, but stop trying to make magic on every single play. I think we've gone full circle with quarterbacks now, and I talked about this with Bill, I think last week, and I was probably rambling, probably drove him up a wall, but when I was really young, we had statuesque pocket passers. Ben Roethlisberger, Brady. I mean, Brady's still bitching about it. Brady still, wants quarterbacks to be able to sit in the pocket, dissect the defense, throw a guy to the correct side of his body to avoid a hit. He still thinks that the quarterback should be responsible for everything. He feels that we've dumbed the game down, right? We heard that audio, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday. Maybe it was on Monday. Who cares? You know the comments I'm talking about. Brady was yelling at a cloud a little bit. And I don't think it was a bad rant. I don't even think it was that bad of a point being made by Tom Brady. And I kind of like an old man yells at cloud rant every once in a while. I get a kick out of it, right? That's the type of quarterbacking that was taking place when I grew up. Breeze was the same way. Roethlisberger, Manning, Brady, and there are others that I'm sure I'm forgetting. And then Rodgers kind of started to blow onto the scene. And man, the way that he could improvise and throw on the run, and then Mahomes, obviously, too. I think a lot of quarterbacks are coming out now. Man, I want to run around. I want to make plays with my legs. I want to throw on the run. I want to draw plays up in the dirt. It's like, okay, that's great to have in your back pocket. But a quarterback like Caleb Williams probably is going to need to back away and actually be more boring. I think there are plenty of young quarterbacks. The best advice I could give Jalen Hurts, be more boring. The best advice I think that Caleb Williams is going to get from his coaches, he's probably already getting it from his coaches. Hey man, you can't run around like that on every single play. We just can't win games like that. We can't move the ball consistently week to week like that. We need some freebies. We need some easy offense. Be more boring. I think now in 2024, especially with these younger quarterbacks coming up that watched Rodgers and that watched Mahomes, have been watching Mahomes, which is crazy, right? Not that different from NBA players who came up watching Curry. It's great that you can do all this stuff. It's great that you can throw on the run. And it's great that you can, kind of play off script and off schedule. But sometimes be boring. It's easier. It's more replicable. It's more consistent. It's easier to get everyone on the same page. And maybe that's part of the dumbing down of the quarterback position. And maybe that's, maybe it's part of the issue that Brady has. But Brady was boring in a good way. I've talked about this for years. And I need Jordan Love to be the right amount of boring this year, I guess, to tie a bow on this segment. You got Watson and Musgrave and Kraft and Josh Jacobs and Jaden Reed, who was really good at yards after the catch last year, too. I think of that play before halftime, that touchdown on New Year's Eve against the Vikings. Let those guys go do some dirty work for you. Not every throw that you make has to be a $250 million throw. 608-321-1670. Would love to get your thoughts. We'll get to some calls after this break. You can text that number 2. Tweet me at Wisco Grant, the Wisco Sports Show. Never miss a Friday show. We can continue next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's 1 year. How many guys have we seen in 1 year ruin it? He's got a lot of playing years ahead of him, but barring injury, I don't see any reason why he doesn't take him to the Super Bowl. He almost did this past year. And we have to keep in mind that it was his first year as a starter, but he's seasoned. He's been around. He's seen Aaron do it at the highest level. He's seen success. So, I mean, it was time for him to take over. And I think he went over and beyond what everyone expected. Not that anyone had low expectations of it, but to lead them, I don't know if many people pegged them as a playoff contender, especially midway through the season. But boy, the second half, you can't deny whether you're a Jordan Love, whether you're a Packer fan or not. No one wanted to play him. when they were hot.
Favre yesterday on the Zach Gelb show. Kind of keeps us rolling with this Jordan Love conversation. I need Jordan Love to be the right amount of boring this year. Started the show back at 4 o'clock. Blazing Tucker Kraft. He's looked awesome. It's like he can be the physical bowling ball tight end Mark Chmura type. Luke Musgrave can be the fast, basically supersized wide receiver. And that's just the tight end room. Forget about what they have at wide receiver. Wicks, Dobbs, precise route runners underneath. Watson taking the top off the defense. Reed. Also, they have Jaden Reed, who's their most productive player of all last year. Oh, yeah, and don't forget Josh Jacobs is on this team now, too. My point is that Jordan Love has all this talent around him. Not every throw that you make has to be a $250 million throw. Let some of these guys do the dirty work for you. I think that's where a lot of quarterbacks in today's day and age, they get a little lost trying to make these grand plays, running around, creating off structure. You know, sometimes structure's great. Thought that was a big part of their success down the stretch last year. 608-321-1670. Let's go to some calls. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Never miss a Friday show. How we doing, Grant?
Vagabond John, I am excellent. Wasn't that a great conversation we had with Zach Heilprin? It's good to be talking college football. I know it's not my wheelhouse, but God, I like doing it sometimes.
Anything with Zach is good stuff. Zach puts out great content. Very much like Jesse. I know I complimented Jesse the other day after he called in, basically saying, you know, these guys approach it with a level head. I think I've been critical of Packers beat mostly, of often looking at things very sunshine and dandelions, like all could go well. And I don't think Jesse or Zach or Mike Clements, Grant, you get great guests on this show. That's what.
Well, you know, I'm just a wonderful. People like talking to me. What can I say, Vagabond? And also, Jesse is, I believe, now contractually obligated to talk to me, and Zach is my coworker. So if he's not going to talk to me, no one will. So those probably aren't the two best examples, but I do like a lot of the guests, yes, that I have on. I don't like having people on that I don't like. I like having people that I enjoy. I think it makes for better content. And the show's only 2 hours. It's not like I need 2 or 3 guests a day.
And it's fun because, you know, you can't choose your siblings. And you just mentioned they're your coworkers and they're contractual. They're kind of like your siblings, but at least your siblings are a cool kind of sibling. Not that crazy sister that's always, you know, doing whatever. But you've been talking to a lot of guests this week, and training camps are starting to wrap up for the Badger and for Packers. And I'm curious, prior, and this is sports talk, right? You got through the dead time of summer. We're talking about highways. We're talking about campsites. We're talking about various fast food restaurants. And now we're into the thick of things. And I feel like you get so excited and you forget August is still a whole freaking month. So now we're to the point of like, oh, we're still talking about expectations and whatnot. But I'm curious, Grant, of all the people that you've listened to and heard, what is the one thing that you weren't thinking about ahead of training camp? So if you're thinking back to your time in July, obviously outside of the Jordan Love contract, because that was the news at the time. But what's the one thing that you've learned about this Packers team through training camp that maybe you weren't thinking about earlier this summer that you're excited to see when they kick off in week 1 in Brazil?
I think probably Evan Williams would be the first name that comes to mind. Like, the more that we've watched him, this dude can play, right? Their 4th round pick out of Oregon, their safety. I think as the summer has gone along, I've gone from hoping that Bullard and Oladapo and Williams can play to now really being confident that at least a couple of them can play. I don't know about Oladapo. He missed some time. But I think that's something I've gained a lot of confidence in. I have a lot of confidence. I'm excited to see Evan Williams in week 1. And I think before we really had some solid training camp reps, that was mostly an unknown. Wouldn't you agree?
If you had to pick one player, I think that's a great player to pick. For me, I think the thing that I'm just excited to watch is the evolution of the Matt LaFleur offense. Last year, it was so many young guys. And maybe I was already thinking about this pre-training camp, so I'm probably copping out of my own question. But hearing you talk about Tucker Kraft, hearing you talk about all of these different options, I want the Packers this season to just be an absolute ball control dominant offense in the way where, I mean, the thing that comes to mind is the Oklahoma State-Wisconsin bowl game. I think it was like maybe a 1 or 2 possession point game. And you're in the 4th quarter and there's 10 minutes left and Oklahoma State doesn't touch the ball again. I think Matt LaFleur and his creativity, using these big pieces, using, you know, maybe a little bit of a thin running back room, but tying Tucker Kraft, getting Jaden Reed the ball in creative ways. He's got so many pieces to work with. Let's just inch that ball down the field, build that lead, and then just not let the other team touch the ball. I think when you're thinking about Patrick Mahomes, you're thinking about the best quarterbacks. How do you beat them? You know, another sports talk cliche. You got to keep them on the side.
Yeah, I love that. To make them sit over there. Well, and it's funny you bring up Mahomes back about John, because when you talk about this Packers team possessing the ball, right, slowly, methodically moving up and down the field, I thought of the Chiefs game right away. The way they took that opening kickoff and they march right down. And Ben Sims is the one to put the freaking ball in the end zone. Remember that? So, like, yes, just because you have 5 or 6 guys and 2 or 3 pieces on offense that can be deep threats, it doesn't mean that you need to be the greatest show on turf. You can be this well-oiled machine that does it little by little. Now, you got to create big plays, too. You can't be a high-level NFL offense without creating explosives. But not every play. This is what I'm saying, right? You need the right amount of boring, too. And the boring this year, Vagabond John, should be so easy. Right? Like simple crossing routes, simple dump offs this year should be more productive than they've been in Green Bay for a long time, because you're not dumping the ball off to, I don't even know, Allen Lazard. You're dumping it off to someone like Tucker Kraft, who can go out and absolutely make hay in the open field, or at least that's what we're seeing in camp. So the right amount of boring, right? You need to create those explosives, but being methodical and also using every piece to your advantage to unlock all of the challenges that the defense throws at you. Yeah, and I thought of that Chiefs game. I think that's a perfect example.
I think it's going to take the pressure off of, and here I go, sunshine and dandelions, my own rosy colored glasses view. It's going to take the pressure off your first-time defensive coordinator. He's not going to be out there. Don't put him in the same position you put Joe Barry in that Lions game when you didn't get a first down in the first half.
Yeah.
Right? Avoid those situations. And this team, Grant, could be really freaking hard to beat, and I don't care which quarterback they're playing. Because if he can play ball control and offense, avoid the 3-and-outs that plagued them in the first half of last season, get that efficiency rating up. The sky is the limit for this team. I'm starting to get pretty amped, Grant.
I'm starting to get really amped. I just think, and Vagabond John, I appreciate it. You have a great weekend. Fins up, my friend. I just, how do you cover everything? How do you cover everything? Right? In previous seasons, and I think at the end of the Aaron Rodgers era, you had to worry about Davante Adams, and that's obviously a massive undertaking. It's not just as simple as, well, if you shut Davante Adams down, you win. There's a lot more to it than that. But as a defensive coordinator, what would you rather deal with? Would you rather deal with one elite wide receiver, or would you rather have to deal with, well, here's 2 guys that can go deep. Here's 2 guys that can kill us underneath. Here's a slot guy. We don't know what he can do a little bit of everything. Here's 2 tight ends, right? They can both do different things. Oh yeah, Josh Jacobs coming out of the backup. Jesus. Like, I think both present lots of challenges. And I think where Packers fans have gotten a little high and mighty this offseason, and this is maybe where I'd push back a little bit on some pro-Packers narratives and talking points, is like, well, I would way rather have this wide receiving core than Davante Adams or Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill. Like, no, it's awesome to have those guys too, because a well-rounded high-level wide receiver like that, you can use them to attack a defense in a million different ways. So I think maybe Packers fans have gotten a little high on the hog, as Packers fans have started to act like it's bad to have a number 1 wide receiver. No, I don't think it's bad. I think it's problematic to have a good number 1 wide receiver with nothing else. We saw that for years, right? Like, I think that was one of the Packers' biggest issues at the end of the Aaron Rodgers era. If they could have found their T. Higgins, and I know that's, Packers fans would roll their eyes because they could have just drafted T. Higgins and they didn't. But if they could have found their number 2 guy behind Davante Adams, who knows? Davante Adams just catches that touchdown against the Buccaneers in that NFC Championship game, right? Not talking about this either. So it's not like Davante Adams didn't have chances too. But I don't know. I think Packers fans have gotten a little high on the hog this offseason, thinking, well, I'm glad we don't have a number 1 wide receiver. Well, it's not a bad thing to have a number 1. It can be a problematic situation when you have an elite number 1 and no one else. Or, it can be problematic too when you have a number 1 and other good wide receivers, and that number 1 is feeling like, I'm not getting the ball enough, right? Like, that can be an issue, but that could become an issue for the Packers this year. If you get to week 3 and Dontavian Wicks only caught a couple balls for, a couple dozen yards, he's like, well, I want to continue to grow. I want to get mine. I want to grow as a player. That could become an issue too, and that's something that we've talked about. Not necessarily I want to dwell on today, because we're pretty positive. The vibes are pretty high. I don't want to kill that. 608-321-1670. If you'd like to call the show, would love to have you. More of your calls and texts next. You can tweet me at Wisco Grant. Comment on the live stream as well. Lots of ways to join in the show. Fins up. It's Friday. We'll continue the show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. I was scrolling Twitter over this last break, and you could follow me on Twitter if you'd like, at Wisco Grant. New Brewers mailbag up at the Journal Sentinel. Willie Adames' future, September call-ups, and a check-in on Aaron Ashby. Now, I don't mean to give away sourcing here, but I was texting about a dream that I had last night. We don't need to get into that, but it was Brewers related. And I was talking to Kurt Hogue this morning, and he said, by the way, Grant, I don't mean to alarm, but Kurt was in Nashville this last week, and he said people were bringing up Ashby unprompted. He's hitting 96, and he looks great, as does Mizorowski and as does Craig Yoho, which I guess begs the question as to why is Bryce Wilson still pitching in the bullpen? That's a separate thing. My point is my Aaron Ashby stock is not dead. In fact, it might be more alive than ever. Now, probably not this year, but he was working back from an injury this year. God, we extend grace to Rhys Hoskins. We can't extend some grace to Aaron Ashby, who basically had to teach himself how to pitch again. Good God. 608-321-1670. Let's get back to the calls. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. Tony from Texas.
Tony from Texas. Tony, are you back in the good land? You said you were coming back to Wisconsin soon. Are you back right now?
Next week, Grant.
Okay,
let's meet up.
Okay.
But I do want to give you some props. I mean, you're young. You're a young man, and you're very astute for your age. Tucker is worth a second-round draft pick is nuts, right? You got to be insane.
Okay, so maybe this is worth talking about. I do a podcast every week with our friend Bart Winkler and our friend Paul Immig. And Paul posed the question, because the Ravens are in town, would you trade next year's second-round pick for Justin Tucker? I said no, I wouldn't. Third, I'd think about it, just because it'd kind of be cool, honestly. But no, I'm not giving up a second-round pick for Justin Tucker. Bart and Paul said yes. I said no. I'm glad you agree with me, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, a couple of things about the Pack. I am really excited about this defensive line. I haven't been this excited since probably 2010. You know, they had Cullen Jenkins, B.J. Raji, Howard Green, those guys. That front against the Ravens, I don't know if you can comment on that. Some of those guys, it looks like they're getting a lot of penetration one-on-one against the Ravens.
Well, and I have a comment or two that I can play from Rashawn Gary. They had an awesome day yesterday. And I don't think it's because the Ravens are bad up front. The Packers can just rotate guys through. That's the thing, Tony, is they have so many guys, not unlike their line in 2010, like you mentioned, where they can just rotate guys in, keep them fresh. That's the trademark of really every great defensive front that's won at a high level in the postseason. They've had more than 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah, the Packers have always struggled against the run the last decade or two. And I think if they can shore that up, keep the other team in long-distance situations, unleash the pass rush, they'll be fine on defense. Offensively, you're talking about all these wide receivers. To me, the key in offense is always and always will be red zone offense. Are you scoring when you're in that red zone? I think when you have all these wide receivers and tight ends, it makes it easier. And lastly, Grant, this CeeDee Lamb rumor keeps on popping up. I don't know why Christian Watson's being linked to CeeDee Lamb, but if you could do it, would you do it or not?
Straight up CeeDee Lamb for Christian Watson? No.
Well, they want like a second and a first with that too.
No.
Yeah, I would.
You got to turn around and pay him. This is I'm really interested to see what happens with Brandon Ayuk, and I'm interested to see what happens with CeeDee Lamb, because Justin Jefferson, we can agree, is so much better than both of those guys, right, Tony? But now the wide receiver market, these guys who come up, they're like, well, I want, it's my moment. I want to reset the market. I want to be the highest paid. And I think some general managers are like, well, we'll pay you a lot, dude, but you're not the best wide receiver in football. Whereas with the quarterback market, it's like, when it's your time, it's your time. I don't know that general managers are willing to think that way. Well, obviously with wide receivers.
Yeah, I like CeeDee Lamb, but I like the Packers wide receivers, the depth better. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Name me one receiver that actually helped a team get over the top. I think, Odell Beckham, maybe you could say, and then maybe Terrell Owens when he went to the Eagles, Randy Moss with the Patriots. But, those teams, they didn't really get over the top. Only the Rams did, and I don't think it was because of Odell Beckham. So I would just stick with what we got. We got such a bag of riches there that it reminds me of 2010, again, offensively and defensively. So anyway, fins up Friday, Grant.
Fins up, Tony.
I'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, I'll let you go, Tony. Maybe we'll be able to connect next weekend. I mean, it's 3-day weekend. I should have time. I don't really have anything on the books next weekend. So if you're in and around Milwaukee, we should be able to figure it out. Let's do a little bit of a meetup. Get some people together. Big Ron's meetup is tonight. Big Ron's hosting a happy hour. I'm going to see him tonight. I saw him and Badger Bloody Reviews in Madison, I think last summer. God, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. Yeah, that was. Oh, that was last summer already. Holy smokes. Kenny Clark, here's the cut. It wasn't Rashawn Gary. It was Kenny Clark talking about, our pass rushers, our D-line had a good day, but it's not because Baltimore's offensive line is bad. That's a good unit.
They got a really good offensive line, a lot of big guys up front. Just proud about how we came out with the energy. Effort was great all day. So, want to take a look at the film and just see where we can, get the mistakes corrected, but proud about how we came out.
Can I just play you two sound bites here? One of Kenny Clark, another one of Kenny Clark here, and then another one of Rashawn Gary. This is Kenny Clark asked if he wants or needs snaps. Do you want to play on Saturday in this preseason game? Listen to his answer.
I don't care, honestly. I mean, if I do, I'm just taking make an opportunity to get better. I need as much snaps as I can in this system. And, just keeping myself in shape and all that kind of stuff. So whatever it is, if we plan, if we not, I honestly don't really care. I'm just trying to just go out and play ball.
So two things about that answer. Number one, I think that's a smart veteran answer. If you're asked, hey, do you think you need snaps? Do you think you should play in this preseason game? Doesn't matter to me. If coach thinks I need it, I'll use it as an opportunity to get better. And if not, I'm a veteran. It's not going to hurt me. It's the perfect answer, because if you say, yes, I think I need to play, well, the coach might just play you. And if you say no, and the coach then plays you, now it's a thing, right? So it's the smart veteran answer to say, it doesn't matter to me. I'm good either way. I also like that he said, hey, I'll take as many reps as I can get in this system, right? It's a new system, new defensive coordinator. It's always an opportunity to get better. I love hearing that from my guys. Here's Rashawn Gary talking about joint practices. We've had Packers in the past talk about, hey, man, I don't like joint practices. I think of Aaron Rodgers first and foremost with the Texans, McCarthy, when he brought him to town. Here's Rashawn Gary talking about a joint practice with the Ravens, I love it. It's a good thing, he says.
Yeah, it was good. Being out there, seeing Lamar, seeing him extend plays, seeing him, throw the ball. Derrick Henry, watching how tough he, get downhill, run the ball. And, offensive line, good job, big guys up front, good position blockers, good on their double teams. But, it was a good practice come out here, work our techniques and, get better.
So he talks about getting better and working on his technique. That's not the soundbite that I wanted to play. This is the one that I wanted to play, talking about how he likes joint practices.
Any opportunity that you get to, work your craft and perfect your game against somebody else, other than your team. Because in camp, I don't want to say it get kind of tiring, but, it's the exact time. How I said every time. Like, my pass rush, what, the points I'm trying to get to. But when you go against a guy that really don't know your game, that has been trying to study film, it look different, in real life, face-to-face when you got to deal with me. So, going out there, being able to, perfect our game, perfect our craft so we can get to where we want to be, at the end of the season. That's all we want. But we came out there today, played fast, and still got things to improve.
Opportunity to get better, looking for areas to improve, ways and chances to hone my craft. This is what I like hearing. It's especially, by the way, what I like hearing from the veterans on that defense. That's the messaging that I want coming from the top down from Kenny Clark. And that's the messaging that I want coming from the top down from Rashawn Gary. I want that being preached. Okay. And it might be, cliches in a press conference. Doesn't matter. I want the prevailing attitude. I want these practices and these preseason games, even if the veterans don't play, to be viewed as opportunities to get better. I don't want them to be viewed as this obstacle. We just got to get through this healthy. We just got to get through this healthy. We just got to, because that mindset, I don't think that's a productive mindset. I don't think that's the aggressive, forward-thinking mindset I want, especially for my veterans. Kenny Clark he's the veteran in that unit, him and Preston Smith. But, Kenny Clark's been here forever now. He's drafted in 2016, for God's sake. 2016 feels like it was forever ago, and I guess it was. But that's the message that I want. Hey, if coach wants me to play, it's an opportunity to get better. It's a new scheme. We could all use the reps. Beautiful. Excellent. That's what I want to hear. One more call, then we'll take our break. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, fins up. It's Q.
Hey, Q, what's going on?
Man, I'm just getting so excited for September 6th. That's going to be an awesome Friday night. I know you'll be at the wedding.
I do have a wedding.
I feel like we're all just pent up Packer fans, just on the cusp of something really good happening. But I'm starting to get a little nervous. I just want to see this team in action. So everybody's doing and saying the right things. I just want to see it on the field. I think, do the Packers still have $22 million in cap space?
They have a good amount. I was looking at cap space earlier today, by the way. Let me look that up. They have a good amount. They're going to have flexibility to add guys if they spring free, or if guys are available in the middle of the year. That sometimes happens. Teams will release guys. They should have money to throw around. They have $22 million in effective cap space, I'm seeing. Yep.
So, like, I'm getting excited for final cuts too, because I feel like there's always some meat left on the bone with some of the people that get cut from franchises that aren't on the same trajectory as us. It'll be interesting to see if we can fill some gaps. Like I would love to get some O-line depth and some cornerback depth, but I think the two biggest glaring issues for this team are kicking and backup quarterback. Which one do you think is bigger, Grant?
That's a good question, Q. I think probably kicker, but I'm not out on Anders Carlson. I know everybody else is, but I think Anders Carlson's going to be the kicker, and I think there's a good chance that he's fine. I'm not going to promise it. I'm not going to predict it, but I don't know. He was a rookie last year. He was always a developmental. I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face. I'm not going to do this rant again. But he was drafted as a developmental kicker. He's not like he was the most accurate college kicker, even in his class. I think they're fine at kicker, and I think they're fine at backup quarterback. And if Jordan Love goes down, well, they'll probably bring in a guy. You know what I mean? If Jordan Love goes down for any particular length of time or any significant length of time, they'll probably bring in someone. They're going to play Sean Clifford, but it's not like they'll go at it with Sean Clifford and Pratt. They'll probably bring in a third. So right now, I'm not sure there's a massive hole at either spot. They just need Anders Carlson to perform. And now it's on those coaches and Rich Bisaccia and the guys on his staff to get that to happen. Thank you for the call, Q. Fins up to you. Fins up indeed. It's a Fins Up Friday. We'll wrap up the Wisco Sports Show, a little Jimmy Buffett, wrap up the week and say our goodbyes before we had a chance to watch the Packers play one more preseason game this weekend against the Ravens. Final segment, Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
not only going out to Wisconsin and the great Midwest, we're going around the world tonight, Parrot Head.
Wisco Sports Show, last couple of minutes. Fins up. It's Friday. Appreciate you listening. Text here from Coyote Mike. I appreciate it. And he says, just heard you mention Paul Emmig. He's excellent. When will Ryan Glasspiegel be on next? It's funny. I texted Ryan today because I needed to book a hotel and in a specific place that he goes a lot, let's just say. And he was actually really helpful. I just know, right? Like, he's a travel whiz, finding the best deals on flights, hotels, that kind of thing. So I was actually texting him earlier today. Saved me like $100 on a hotel. So I don't know when he'll be on next. Normally when I have Ryan on, it's because there's like sports media news. He actually broke the news today that Chris Broussard's leaving Fox Sports Radio just to do FS1, just to do First Things First, which makes a ton of sense, by the way. He did I think it was 90 minutes. Now it's a 2-hour television show. He did a 2-hour television show every day and then a 4-hour radio show from 7 to 11, which it would be one thing if they were like back to back, but they're not. Like, he had this awkward 2-hour window. That schedule would suck. It's like, so you're on TV from 2 to 4, and then you're also on the radio from 7 to 11. That's just, I would hate that schedule. I wouldn't like that schedule at all. So good for Broussard. He's fine. Even The Odd Couple with Rod Parker is a good show. I'd listen to it sometimes, but he broke that news today. He's broken it good. Ryan's kind of been on a heater the last couple of weeks, the New York Post. So I don't know when he'll be back on next, Coyote Mike, to your point, but soon to talk about one thing or another. I'm sure he helped me out today, though. Saved me like $100. Thank you for the text. 608-321-1670. Any final thoughts? You can get them in before we part ways for the weekend. I am excited, I think, just to continue to watch this Packers defense. I'd be surprised if any starters on this offense play. I think we get a nice showing of some of that interior depth. Jacob Monk, Sean Ryan, Grant Dubose, Malik Heath, the bottom of the wide receiver depth chart. And I think those guys can play. Those are NFL players. They're not top of the roster NFL players, but those guys can be on an NFL roster, which is more than you can say about a lot of players that play in a team's third preseason game. So I think there's real entertainment value there. I don't know that there's positional values to watch. I don't know. The Packers really liked Malik Heath last year. There was a lot of momentum after the first preseason game to maybe have Grant Dubose be the final wide receiver on the roster. I just don't know. I think Bo Melton could use some more run. I still don't know what to do with Bo Melton. I'm not really sure. I tell you what, Grant Dubose and Malik Heath are much more prototypical Packers wide receivers, size, strength, blocking. Bo Melton's speedy, but he's just small, and they typically don't go that route. Typically. They have exceptions, but Bo Melton's been around a while. He popped in a couple games late last year, and kind of about it. So I'm interested to see. The bottom of the wide receiver roster is definitely worth watching. The interior of the offensive line, I think there are depth pieces there, and how those depth pieces play into the plans for the exterior. Like if Rasheed Walker has to miss time, if Zach Tom has to miss any time, do they kick Jenkins out? Do they kick Morgan out? And then who's first up, whether it be Ryan or Monk? Or if all of the sudden their center, whose name for whatever reason is escaping me, Josh Myers, thank you. If he has to miss a little time, is it Monk? Is it Ryan? Is it Elton Jenkins who scoots over? Like, I do have some questions about the bottom of the offensive line depth, the bottom of the wide receiver depth. And some of the youngsters on defense will be interesting to watch. Have an excellent weekend. Thank you for listening. As always, we have real college football on. We have a Packer game. And Brewers in Oakland. What could possibly go wrong there? What could possibly go wrong? Have a great weekend. Fins up. I'll talk to you Monday.
What can we say? Thank you all very much. You sure make a boy from Mississippi feel right.